All right, so in the absence of folks coming back, let's begin. We don't have a lot of time, so I want to ensure I respect everyone's time who came back on time. So let's move into our continued discussion on malware and ransomware. So malware and ransomware are delivered through multiple vectors. One of them is something called spam. So in English, I'm not sure, it's SPAM. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that concept, spam. So very often in receiving spam from what you might call your commercial people who are advertising training, especially cybersecurity training is very popular. To say get to the training or attend a conference, you tend to get that kind of information coming into your inbox. And normally there's an attachment like a registration form or something like that. Maybe you'll have a recruitment drive, and in that recruitment drive, the attacker detects that you are looking for people, so they will create a similar email and attach like a application form to it, and again that could be perceived as spam as well. And those attachments generally can have what you call payloads of normally ransomware or other malware attached to it. There is also the possibility of a malicious link in a message, a spam email, or a SMS, often known as smishing attack. We have so if you see on your books, those notebooks I gave out called secure.post, which is on my shirt, we actually have, or if you go to that link, I hope it's accessible. It should be accessible in Cuba. I didn't check. If you go to secure.post, you'll be directed to check.secure.post, which is a link checking service that we're offering to posts and anyone who's interested in using it. And you can check links that are suspicious to see if they are been reported as malicious links. So if you go right now, you can check it if you're on your phone or if you're on a computer. Check.secure.post, you'll be able to see a link checking service that we offer the UPU. But again, not every link is checked through eternity, so just be careful about checking links in messages that seem very, what we call spammy links. Illegal software. So I heard the talk about using free software here. And of course, given the situation in your country, very sympathetic to that issue. But of course, you need to try and use legitimate software. So when we talk about free software, it's normally something called free, libre, open source software, FLOSS, which is not the same as software that is normally you pay for it, and in this case you're not paying for it. A different thing. Not here to point out anything to anybody about that, but obviously if you are living in the Pirate Bay or those types of environments, you're susceptible to downloading software that has payloads on it that could escape your scanners and escape your it's very sophisticated. You may not be able to pick it up. And again, just remember, you may have ransomware sitting in your network today, without realizing it, because ransomware is very hard to detect until it's deployed. So you could have one of those, I'm not saying you do, one of those free downloads you made and may have had a payload, and it could be ransomware attached to it. You never know. So keep that in mind as one of the issues with illegal software. I'm not saying free software, I'm saying illegal software, right? And of course, there are many other methods that we can have the way it's deployed. And the types of malware, as I mentioned, this is just some very old and, of course, increasingly newer types. Something called a Trojan horse. That's software that is perceived to be good, so like a free PDF reader that you might download online. Sometimes those free tools that seem very benign couldn't contain malware. Not all malware is designed to create an attack. It's designed for what's called spyware, which is the next thing, observing your habits, observing your browsing so that it can deliver advertising to you. I understand in your environment there are some issues with that, but notwithstanding, those are the kind of things that it slows down your machine and it clogs up your browser. You see things opening up all over the place and what's going on here, etc. And bear in mind that if your work environment is controlled, right? So it sounds like your work environment is very well controlled. You also have to take that into we're all responsible. So look at that into your non-work environment, your home environment, your children's school environment. Make sure the same principles are applied that you apply in the office, you apply at home, in terms of protecting your own devices, your tablets, your computers, your laptops, your phones, that you don't do the same thing on those devices that would create the problem that you're trying to avoid in the office. Because you could bring that device to the office and it could happen, right? Once you're on the same network. Adware, similar. Displays ads, pop-ups, crazy things. You see that. Luckily, most of the browsers today are able to control it, but you can't catch everything. And again, that's another payload that can be deployed as part of software that you download or links that you click. Looking not only for free streaming of sports, very popular way to get caught in adware or spyware. I want to watch what's popular sport besides football here? So I think baseball is popular in Cuba. So let's say you want to watch free baseball stream somewhere and you get a link and you open that link up. It may show the baseball, but all the stuff before would have been adware, and that could be installed in a machine. Or free football in a World Cup football link. People try to see Premier League or any type of those leagues that are streaming, and you try to open one of those links as well. Same thing could happen as well. Of course, don't do it in the office, please, and certainly try and avoid doing it on your personal devices. Of course, we spoke at length about ransomware, and the standard thing that you're familiar with, a virus. A virus is as it sounds. As like with COVID and those other viruses, it enters your body, your organization, and replicates. It spreads through contact, quote unquote. So it replicates through sending messages through your email program. I don't know if you've ever seen that, where sometimes you wonder, people getting a lot of messages from you, and I say, I didn't send that. What are you talking about? So that may be you have a virus that's sending strange messages out to people. You may have seen that happen before. And I didn't send it because it's a virus doing that, replicating itself. That's what replicates itself. All right, potential impacts. So obviously we mentioned this before: operational disruption, financial losses, data breaches and theft, reputational damage, regulatory penalties. That's very important. So again, I'm not sure if this impacts you in Cuba, but across the world, there's something called GDPR, which is Global Data Protection Regulation, which if you're dealing with European organizations, businesses in particular, and you encounter a data breach and you do not report it in a timely fashion, you can be penalized a percentage of your revenue, not your profits, of your revenue. And if they enforce that, that can be quite substantial depending on your revenue position. So all these things are there's tiers and it depends, but the best thing to do is if you have a data breach, do report it as quickly as possible. I know people think it's like embarrassing to report it, or it seems as if it's maybe counterintuitive to report something that happened to you because you may be susceptible to more damage. But I'll tell you about our ISAC project, which is a safe place to report those kinds of things. It's often better to report it to get help for it, and it won't happen again. And you also help others who are similarly resourced as you. So by reporting something like this, you're also strengthening the sector overall, and that will strengthen you as an entity. So we encourage you to report it to the UPU if you want to report to the UPU, or in our projected information sharing analysis center, or post ISAC, which is what this training is covered under, post ISAC. Right? I'll skip this information about just what's happening in Africa, for example. Basically, ransomware is increasing, and everybody's vulnerable, everybody's affected. There's nobody who is immune. Please do not be overconfident. Long story short, please don't think that you're strong enough because you think that you are powerful, you think that you're doing the right thing. Trust me, the largest companies in the world with the teams 10, 15, 100 times yours have been attacked, and there are ways in. So I know you think that we've solved everything. Please do not be overconfident. Right? That's the worst trait you can have. Right? Always be aware. Always try and be improving and doing better. How does it work? Well, this is unnecessarily technical for you, except to say that most of these attacks come through social engineering, right? Which, as I'll go into some in another slide afterwards. It's, long story short, utilizing an individual, an employee, something like that, to gain their trust, and therefore using that individual to gain access in some way, whether it's ask them to release their credentials to you. So I said even romance schemes are part of this, making friends online and getting them to be friendly to you. You give them your password. It happens. Can I get your password? It's the same password you're using for your phone and your work for some reason, whatever. On that note, I forgot to say before, I hope in your organization you've followed the advice that's come out now where complex passwords are no longer as safe as you think they were. And by that I mean the passwords that are randomly generated by these tools, the gobbledygook of numbers and hashes and so on, that's no longer safe. Passphrases, it's the paradigm we've reached to is, besides eliminating passwords altogether, which is passwordless technology that's arrived, and it should be the best technology going forward. But for those who still use passwords, or have to use passwords, use something called a passphrase. Does anyone, who knows what a passphrase is? Let me see. A passphrase. And I talked about it earlier. What's a passphrase? I don't know if that translates well in Spanish. A passphrase. So a passphrase is the reason why it's something that you can remember easily, but only you can remember it, and that's important. So it's often a sentence that's strung together that may not make any sense. So I'll give you an example. The Prince of Siam is swimming in sewage. I don't know if that translates in Spanish. And you probably would add an exclamation point somewhere to replace the I or something like that. That long passphrase, because that's long, it's many characters long, and you may put capital letters, etc. It's almost impossible to crack, because that accumulation of words is not random. It's actually your passphrase that you can remember, but it's very, I'm sure AI is going to catch up with that soon, but it's very difficult to put that phrase together. I just made it up. I just made up that phrase. And the more nonsensical it is, the more nonsense it is, the harder it is to crack, because any tool is going to put the words together, and to put the words together in the right order is going to take years. And then to add the capital letters in the right order and wherever it is, it's going to take more years. And then if you add special characters in that, it's going to take years. So the thinking has evolved beyond, R, G, B, exclamation mark. That can be cracked faster now with AI in particular. And plus it's harder. The reason why that's difficult, the reason why that's changed is not because it's easier to crack, which it is, it's because it's hard for you to remember it. All right, so you tend to write it down or save it somewhere. That's the problem. So how many people know of people who have their passwords on a post-it note somewhere under their keyboard, somewhere hidden, and they have to keep, And trust me, that's the first place people look when they're looking on your desk. Where's the password? And it's private. You may not, IT will tell you never do that. You say, IT. And I can't remember the password they gave me, so I'm writing it down, sticking it under my laptop, or whatever. IT will never know, but the cleaner might. The cleaner will say, first place I'm going to look is under your keyboard, or wherever you have it, and that's where your password is. So the reason why they've stopped recommending using complex passwords is because it is hard to remember, and that encourages you to write it down somewhere or store it somewhere, and that's where the first place people think to look. You ever heard the story of a thief coming into your house, right? They're looking for jewelry, and they're looking. You think, I've hidden my jewelry in my freezer, or under the bed, or wherever it is. Where do you think they're going to look first for your jewelry? In your mattress and in the freezer. They're looking for they know what you've done. They're smarter than you in that way. They're not going to look for it in your jewelry closet, wherever you have it. They're going to go straight to the freezer where you stored your jewelry, or your mattress where you have cut a hole in it. They're looking for it there. Same concept with passwords. They're looking for it where you think you might put it. So by having a password that's easy to remember for you, means that you will not write it down. It's less likely to write it down. So think about that if you're using passwords. Use passphrases that you can remember, but that are difficult to crack. If you go and check the tools that are online to show you how long it takes someone to crack, the longer phrases will take like 1,000,000 years to crack. This is what they say. AI will take care of that eventually, bring it down, but it's still years. So they'll just move on. Again, when you don't have cars. I don't know if you have cars that are stolen in Cuba, but in Trinidad, cars are stolen all the time. And the strategy uses something called a deterrent. So you put a blinking light on the dashboard. Even if you don't have an alarm, you put a blinking light on the dashboard. Or remember those things you pull around the steering wheel that are visible? You don't know what I'm talking about. Cars don't get stolen here. No? No, cars don't get stolen in Cuba. Yeah, so in countries where cars get stolen, you put a deterrent, meaning a visible sign that if somebody's trying to steal your car, they will say, that's too hard, I'll move on to the other one. So it's not that they can't break in, it's just that it's too hard. It's harder for me to break into that car, so let's move on. That's what these strategies with passwords and visible deterrents are, just to move on to something else. It's too hard. So basically they get into your system, and utilizing the technology that is available, there's something called lateral movement. It will move through the organization So the best approach you can use from the IT team is something called micro-segmentation. So your network should be segmented in a significant way. So not just basic by department, but it should also be micro-segmented. So you should have, there's a diagram that I could show you if you want to get technical, but how you would segment your network into areas where, long story short, it means that if an attack is being deployed, it only affects one part of that, a tiny part of your network, and the rest is protected. By the time you figure out what's happening, you can shut down and close off the network from that attack, and only affected here, as opposed to spreading through lateral movement rapidly, because it spreads rapidly across the entire network and takes down your data. Right, so that's generally how it works. Again, I have a video to show you the details, but I think that might be giving the room too difficult to show you that video now, because it's going to take a while to show you how it works. I have a ransomware attack video that shows you how ransomware is deployed. Software, it shows you by code, but that might be a little bit too hard, too challenging. It's an hour, it's an hour-long video. So what do you do when ransomware hits, right? So the first thing, as I mentioned with the segmentation, disconnect the system that's infected, right? So as soon as you realize what's happening, your team, you disconnect, lock it down. You ever saw the videos movies where they stamp on your phone and they crush it and so on? It's a similar concept. Destroy the vector. So as far as they can, eliminate the main source of the attack as far as possible. So isolate, you do this through software or hardware, you shut down the area where the attack is happening and protect the rest of your network as quickly as you possibly can, right? So that's the first thing you do. Of course, you notify this is important, both your IT team and management that this is happening. You're experiencing a ransomware attack, but not just IT, both directions. Let people know what's going on, okay? The general advice is to avoid paying the ransom, right? I know it's a challenging thing. The video I showed earlier has pros and cons for this, but the challenge with ransomware today is that there's something called double extortion, as mentioned. And double extortion means that most times it so again, I don't like to use this example, but I might as well use it. In many times when if someone is kidnapped, right, and they're calling for a ransom, the majority of the time the person's already dead, right? So you're paying the ransom, but the person is dead, so you're paying it and it's not solving the problem. You want to get the person back. And it's the same thing for data. They're threatening to hold your data and release your data on the dark web, right? That's called double extortion. What has already happened in most cases, that's already, you would not know because you're living in the regular internet. They have already released that data on the dark web anyhow and sold it, so they can maximize their revenue already. And then they're asking you for a ransom on top of all of that. So even though you've negotiated and you're still, okay, they asked me for $10, I got it down to $8 or whatever, and you paid the $8. First of all, the odds of getting the key to release your data are slim to none. And even if you get the key for your data, which is what is called a key, to unlock your data, they give it back to you, the data is already stolen, gone, and it's already gone. So all you're doing is kind of bringing yourself back up, but now all your data is sold on the dark web. So it's often said that it's best not to pay the ransomware provider, ransomware attacker, but to bring in a negotiator. Not to bring the price down, but to buy time while you bring your network back up and hopefully get back your data through other tools, right? So the negotiator is not to actually bring the price down, but to buy time. But the gang is onto that now, and that was a whole, if you want to look at these cases of negotiators and ransomware gangs, you'll see that the ransomware gang understands that the negotiator is buying time. And it's a whole game that's being played out. So, long story short, do not get hit by ransomware, because it is devastating. It is devastating. Trust me. I know it sounds terrible, but yeah, it is. The strategy is prevent, not react. It's prevent. You need a plan for reaction if it happens, but do your utmost best to prevent it from happening. That's your strategy, not to work to react to it, right? Restore backups. So we had a whole discussion about the backup story. Sounds like you have a good plan. I said check your suppliers, but backups are the key to this. Backup your backup, and backup that backup, and then backup that backup. So like a triple backup strategy. Ensure. So most times the strategy is real-time backup on the network, but air-gapped from the rest of the network. Off-site backup, right, as you said, and then off-island, in this case, backup. So not only off-site, off-island. So not in your country at all. Very difficult to deal with that situation if you get attacked, right? And I said engage experts, negotiators, etc. to assist. The key ways to fight malware and ransomware, as I said, the basic one is to back up, have a great backup strategy. That way, if and ever you're attacked, you can laugh and say, don't worry, we're covered. Because your backup strategy is bulletproof. You have your backups in perfect shape, it's real time, you will lose no data, and therefore, if the attacker hits you, it is irrelevant. I'm good. My network is segmented. I'm good. You can do what you want. You can do what you want. I'll call an expert in to try and get back my data, but I can continue my business as usual because I have my data in place. The risk you have is that your data is being sold. That is something you cannot prevent if it happens. All right. Software to prevent that from happening. Vendors sell you software to do this. I have doubts that these things work privately, and sometimes you're not sure even if that vendor is working together with the provider of ransomware, and so you don't know who's who in this industry. So I'm not going to say that is a strategy that you should rely on, software to prevent it from happening. It's good to monitor your network, and it's good for that to happen, but I don't think you should rely on that. I would say that's a low-tier solution. And they have AI detection, all the things you're seeing now, AI detect your ransomware, etc. I have my doubts that those things actually give you what you're looking for. The thing that you should do is keep your software updated, and that's something that you can control. I don't mean IT, I mean you. Again, you. You know those things when you're loading your machine, and in today's internet basic strategy, it actually warns you that your software is out of date. Your browser, your office productivity tools, whatever you have, it tells you now that it's out of date. Please update. Do not ignore those warnings. Those warnings, once they're legitimate, are there for a reason. Most times, especially ones that are regular, it's because they're doing security patches, right? It's not because they want to improve the software version. Most times it's about patching flaws that they found. So they're exploits that they have discovered through research, and what they're doing is actually patching that software. So those security updates you see coming in, notifications, do not ignore them. Please update your software. That will give you one more tool in your toolkit to prevent you from being attacked. All right? Educate, so back to the training, educate your employees, please. And I'll explain that to you shortly. What is a way to deal with phishing? This is a problem that people don't seem to take seriously enough. educate them more than we're doing today. Like what I'm doing today is just a very high level thing. To get deep down, do drills, do scenarios with your employees, not the people here, your employees, about what can happen with a cyber attack, simulate phishing attacks, um, simulate simulate what you can simulate, and show them what not to do, and then how to do it the right way, right? So that with time and with training, they become very suspicious, even to the point where you're even questioning if their boss sends them an email that this is is this real? Let me check. It's better to check than to open. It's my boss for sure. I'm opening it. So always check your sources of if something's coming. Open this now. One of the things I tend to use now is I tend to avoid using attachments as a rule. I try to avoid it at all costs and utilize. We have Microsoft Teams and deployed, and I send all my um, information as secure links. At the very least, you'll know what's happening when you're opening the link because you have to be authorized to see the attachment. So you have to sign in, and you know logically that if it's offering the single sign of the organization, then more likely than not it's going to be a safe attachment, a safe file. If you're just opening attachments, it's risky. Okay? And of course, at the IT level, numerous network security measures you need to take, and that's not for the session, but they know what I'm talking about, that they do the network security thing, and that allows them to protect you from, as much as possible, the attacks that are coming in every day at their network. All right, so I'll just skip past the time, and go to a discussion. All right, so let's ask some questions. How can postal services protect their digital infrastructure from ransomware attacks? So what steps should you take, having heard what I've just said, to protect yourselves against ransomware attacks? What steps should you take now? The floor is open. Assuming you haven't, so I'm going to assume you haven't done everything that you possibly can do. What should you do that you haven't done yet? Have you trained how many employees do you have in the organization? How many employees do you have? Do you know how many employees you have working for you? Do you know how many employees do you have? Hello? People hearing me? How many employees do you have in your organization?
Bueno, en la entidad.
In the entity I represent here, we have almost 500 people working there. 440 something, almost 500 employees. So we implement in the servers where we have this kind of attacks of ransom. We implement the updated antivirus, and we review each of the messages and emails we receive, and we also deploy training plans. We are sending alerts as well when we see any time of these spam messages, so that users might know that they are not supposed to open attachment documents or opening messages from people they do not know. We usually alert people on that, and we do that by training our users, sending alert messages, and also using antivirus. This is almost what we do. Those are the main actions we implement in our enterprise, in our company, and we have not been affected, impacted by the ransomware attacks, so we have none of those in our net.
La empresa nosotros somos
bueno.
menos, pero
My enterprise, the one I represent, most of us are informatic people, IT people, about 40 people. Mainly we have corporate antivirus, enterprise antivirus, but we also have not 32, and we download the antivirus every week for different senders, which are spam people or directions or groups we do not know in Cuba. They are blocked. They are not authorized to send messages to Cuba. And we also try to, in our computers, to have them without networks, the management one or the administration ones without networks. So we might navigate in the internet while also administrating the servers. We do that on remote possibilities, but not from the network.
Okay. So that's 400, 500 people, 40 people. Any more people, any more employees that are covered? So 540 people. So that includes the postal workers, so delivering the mail and so on.
Sí, a ver, respecto a las preguntas.
In packages or in mail, there is a whole group of. We have sensors that detect any kind of attack, and directly they tell us which computer is impacted in the specific moment. And we also, when then we unplug the computer, we make a report in which we include the viruses we're able to find in the computer, and we proceed with a whole number of actions to to use the information sent by the sensors to detect any malicious attack.
Do you all do cyber drills? Do you do drills?
A ver, nosotros en realidad decimos que somos 40.
We say we are 40 because we're the fourth IT persons dealing with the issues of informatics in the country. We are 40 of us that studied informatics and technologies. Perhaps we also have some other people who are working in the commercial area, and we are not either delivering packages. We are the ones given informatics services, technology services to all postal services. And those 500 people they were talking about are the 20 enterprises we have in the country. And we also have a sensor directly connected to the networks of informatics security office and we monitor the whole network of the country. Anything that happens in the country's network, we send information to the enterprise which is showing any kind of attack or impact. We inform that entity and they act according to the procedures, implementing the antivirus and all that. This is how the 40, we can imagine it's 40 that deal with the whole country. And that is what happens in informatics.
So I was asking, do you do drills, cyber drills?
Sí se hacen ejercicios, sobre todo.
We do drills, indeed, mainly by network informatics security, which is subordinated to the Ministry of Communications, not only in the postal services, but also in our offices. They have some drills, and they pretend they are having some attacks. Indeed, we have drills performed.
And for all the staff?
Sí,
All staff.
Yes, for all the staff, for all the staff.
A ver, además, desde el punto de vista.
Likewise, from the organization position, in postal services, we have a state-owned company or enterprise that includes some other companies. We have some companies, some enterprises in Cuba that develop and keep systematically updated all the antivirus, of course, monitoring all the time the updating at international level related to any new virus that might appear. There are some enterprises in Cuba that do that kind of work, and it's mandatory to contract people to work there. In Correos de Cuba, which is the postal services in Cuba, the cybersecurity work is not part of the informatic teams. So cybersecurity is done by other departments, which are control and security, and they are the counterpart between IT people who access all the networks of the system and them who are in charge of dealing with cybersecurity.
Okay. And incident response plans, you have that in place?
momentico.
Just a minute, I would like to add something else. I just wanted to support what the director was stating here. In our specific case, we who are in charge of cybersecurity, supervision and monitoring is one of the actions we implement. And of course, we are the counterpart of the informatics security.
So the two groups sounds like. So both have instant response plans, correct? I'm assuming. Yes? And those plans are known to all staff members. If something, everybody knows exactly what to do in the event of an attack. Yes? So I ask again, does this extremely powerful framework you have, is that known to your suppliers as well? And is it shared with the suppliers? Back to my supply chain discussion. So it sounds as if the post, the government, and the entities involved have really good systems, yes? Never 100% sure, but are those plans shared, or do you train, or do you work with your suppliers to do the same thing, to ensure that they are also strengthened?
A ver, como usted lo está explicando.
As you are explaining this, we, as an integration of system, including all the enterprises which are part of a business model, we do not do that the way you are mentioning here, but all enterprises in the country do the same. It's internal, it's a domestic kind of action. We do not integrate one company with another one. With my suppliers, they have their control system, and I have my own control system. So we integrate them with theirs, and we are vulnerable in that regard. But internally, they have their own control systems, and we have ours. We still need to integrate that system with the suppliers and the customers, because they are suppliers not only goods and services, but we also have some customers we make our offers to. So we need indeed the integration with a counterpart of a business model.
Yes, I would suggest that it sounds as if, because you have your very strong procedures and policies already as the government post, it'll be very helpful, I think, if one thing to take away from today is to find a way to reach out to your suppliers and to expand that to them as part of a national resilience strategy. I would call it a national resilience. So not only the government, but also the suppliers of services to you who are not currently, because you don't know exactly what they have. I mean, you said they're doing things too, but it may not be to a standard, it may not be regularly done, it may not be done well, I don't know. So if it is that there's one thing I think will come out of this, maybe getting together with your suppliers, sharing information as far as possible, and also trying to standardize one way of doing these things so that in the event something does happen in their side of it, you are not affected because they have the procedures in place to stop it from spreading to you. You see what I'm trying to say? So it's contained in their environment only because you can't control everything that they are doing. You simply can't. You can try, but you simply can't control something that they might be doing. So one step beyond this, if you're not doing it already, is to really reach out. This is not, I'm not saying this because you should know this, because something that's evolving. And this, like we had a discussion with Visa, the company Visa, last week. And it's something that's emerging on their end as well. That Visa, large Visa, MasterCard Visa, had to hire a supply chain team to deal with attacks that are coming in at a supply chain level that are affecting them. A large organization like Visa that is probably has one of the best security implementations you have because of what they do. You know, they're PCI, DSS, etc. So Visa has recognized that supply chain risk is the biggest risk for them. And they now have auditing of their suppliers and due diligence. You can't be a supplier to them without passing this test of due diligence and so on, and so on and so forth, so on and so forth. And under the ISAC project, we are going to be rolling out a risk dashboard that for any post who is interested in rolling out a supply chain risk management strategy, that you'll get best practices from us in the ISAC. So keep that in mind that we're going to be rolling that out in the next few months so that you can get help with that. All right, so thanks for that. So I have a device here. Everybody knows what this is? This is something called a data blocker, right? So when you go to the airport or somewhere, there's a USB charging port, right? And you stick your phone thing in, that could be a risk, right? For those who don't know, that's a risk. So this device blocks malicious software from coming in to your device, to your phone or to your, right? I have one here. So I'm going to give this away to somebody who can answer a question first, right? Yeah? Based on what we talked about. Giving this away. All right. So can someone name the different types of malware that exist, like the vehicles that malware can come through? Can someone list them? First one to list it gets this correctly. No one? I shall keep this on me. Put it back in my pocket. No one?
Can you please repeat the question if there is no inconvenience, sir? Can you please repeat the question?
So at one of the slides, I went through the different types of malware, like the vectors of malware. I won't name, but there are about 6 of them. And I want you to list them all for me.
Está escrito en inglés. La vez que los pianos, el troyano.
I'll give you hint. One is called a Trojan horse. No one? All right. New question. I showed on a slide the ways you can prevent ransomware from getting into your organization. Give me 3 of them. 3 ways of preventing ransomware from getting into your organization. I mean, guys should know this is. Should know this. You should know this. This is. You said you have this wonderful plan. You know, everything is great, so it should be easy. Like, yeah, I have the 3. I can't hear without the mic. Without the mic, I can't hear, unfortunately.
Las albas.
The backup, saving information systematically in periodical terms, antiviruses, keeping softwares updated, and the information to the employees, training to the employees, preparation to them, as well as security actions in the networks.
Yeah, excellent, yeah. Can someone just give this down? Let's give. Just someone just give it to him. I will try to. Yes. Thank you.
Eso es un bloqueador.
All right. So we'll go to lunch in 15 minutes. Before we go to lunch, let me go through our session on phishing. Okay? So how to recognize phishing. So phishing, everybody knows what phishing is? Everybody knows phishing? Phishing. It's an English word spelt badly. Phishing. Right? In Spanish, it's como reconocer la suplantación de identidad. Not sure if that's what it means, but phishing. Right? So what is phishing? So here are some examples of what phishing looks like. Okay? You're not addressed by your first name. You're addressed by a general, my friend, madame, sir/madame, etc. Right? Normally, you don't know the sender of the information. Right? The content of that letter sounds too good to be true. Right? So it's offering you some prize, some special award for something. And as I said, sometimes these get very sophisticated. It could come from your boss. Your boss will be sending you a prospective award. We recognize your quality work over. So unless you're a bad employee, you will, oh my gosh, yes. You always think you're good. You always think that, I've done a great job. You're not going to say, yeah, he's crazy. I'm a horrible employee. What's he doing? Right? So you're thinking that, it's me. Right? Now, the sender's address doesn't match a company name. So I don't think that applies here, but in many posts, they still use Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo addresses, even the CEOs. Right? So I just want to make a plug for our .post domain. So we actually roll out something called .post. We have a top-level domain. We are the only UN agency that has a top-level domain, .post. And once you get a .post domain, there is no way you can be phished, because you see something .post, because we vet every .post domain holder, it's impossible for you to spoof a .post email. Nothing is truly impossible, but I think this is as close as you can get to impossibility, because there's no other .post in the namespace, because we have it. So when we vet a name, like a person who gets a .post domain, we validate that it is a company who can use it, and therefore you see something .post. So we encourage those posts who don't have secure domains to get .post as an email address. So you can get all your employees at whatever name you want to use. Let's say, like you can get Cuba.post, if you wanted that. And so using Gmail, basically. Normally, in this email, there's urgency attached to it. So that's the key element. You have to do something pretty quickly. It's not about, you have to say, so let's assume it's from your organization and they're phishing, and it's from your, let's say it's your finance department. And they will normally do it, so they will normally know when the quarter is closing or the whatever, there's a deadline. So they'll send the mail at a particular time, and the employee will be, because it's coming from their boss, as far as they're concerned, they will then look to react in a certain way that they would not react normally. Because if my boss sends me a mail saying, I need this by a certain deadline, this is urgent, you don't, they actually, and it's written in a certain way, I will react, I will open that attachment, and that's your nature. You wouldn't check, you'll just open it, right? So that's what they're relying on, that thinking, that you open something quickly. So they said, please review this file now. I'm sending this on to the board this evening for a meeting. Or please, you did not submit the latest data. Please insert this data now. And something important like that. And that's normally, it breaks all of your mental, you're thinking, I can see a phishing email from a mile away. Nobody will be surprised. When someone it's done well enough, you open that attachment to enter that data. And you enter the data, it's so good that you enter the data because they've done the engineering, they've got your documents from the photocopier, they know exactly what's going on. So when you it looks just like a file that you've seen because they've scanned people's emails already and seen it. So when you see that file, it looks just like the financial report. Yes, I enter it and I say, boom. That's how it works. Yep. There's only the possibility to reply by mail. You can't do any other thing. You have to reply by email because they operate by email. So no Slack, no, it's reply by email, right? Now, look at the attachment extensions because these are the key. Sometimes you see extensions that don't make any sense. And this is not a session to train you in that, but ask your IT department, of course, to ensure that the extensions that you see are not unusual, like doc. Is not an extension that you want to utilize. And also should only have one period, one punto after the name. So only so name dot something, not name dot something dot something. That's normally a deliberate attempt to fool you. So you'll see like doc.pdf.docx. That's probably something designed to fool you. All right? Do not open videos on attachments. That is a no-no. And videos should come, if you want to watch videos, go on social media and watch videos. Don't open video attachments. I would just ignore them completely. I ignore them on WhatsApp, I ignore them on email. If somebody wants to see a video, send me the link to the video on TikTok or wherever it is that you see it, and I might watch it there. I'm not going to open a video because that video could be, and they might be sending you a video that is, they think they're infected, but they don't know they're infected. So they're thinking, yeah, let me forward this video, look at the latest Kim Kardashian or whatever floats your boat, video, and you see it, and right? Look carefully at the domain, right? So, have you seen these emails where the domains are utilizing new characters? Have you seen those emails yet? So, the letter A I should actually show you to you now. I don't know if I could. You probably can't see it from this far. There are particular characters, scripts, that are written similarly in different languages. So the letter A is notorious for that. So the letter A has, in Latin, what we call Latin script, it's done like this, right? But in a different script, in Greek script, it's like this. And when you look at it, let's say Facebook, right? So Facebook will have the A with the regular A. But if someone wants to register another A, like this one, you just have to get the script. And some registrars allow that to happen. So let's assume you get an email from something at Facebook dot, whatever strange extension, and they allow it to happen. You're looking at it, that's coming from Facebook, right? And the email is crafted properly. But if you don't inspect the actual domain carefully, you'll see that you won't see that the A is written differently. It's like a different A, not the Latin A. It's like Greek A. There are a lot of letters like that now, and they're Russian and Greek and Cyrillic, that the letter looks similar to Latin script. And at first look, it wouldn't occur to you until you look at it more carefully. That's deliberately designed to fool you. I'll give you an example. So we did a phishing test at the UPU recently, and it came from UPU, something at UPU. So our address is upu.int, international, right? So my address is tracy.hackshaw@upu.int. So they were doing a remote teleworking survey or something like that. And they sent a teleworking survey to us from our HR department at upu.it and sent that out. And it was very well written. Surveys there. About 80% of people fill out the survey for teleworking. They want teleworking. But what was the problem? The address was hr@upu.it, which is Italy's top-level domain. There's no N in it, IT. But you're just looking at it, and it looks like INT to you. So hr@upu.it. Do you want to have teleworking for more than 3 days a week? Everybody's like, yes, I want teleworking. It's like, yes, fill out a survey now. It was a test that 80% of us failed it. 80%. Even though we had training, even though we had all the things, they just knew what they were doing. And 80% of us failed that survey. So you have to look carefully at the domain. And even though you're doing the training, that you say you're doing, watch carefully at the results of the training and what exactly are the patterns you're detecting. If it is that the training says that you have about 80% people failing or whatever it is, why are they failing the test? What exactly is the problem that is not getting through to them, right? So just make sure, even though you're doing the training, monitor the success of that training and see how it's working, all right? So some key points: never rush to open all attachments, right? Check the links on the page. You see I have my check.secure.post link there. So I invite you to use check.secure.post, the check links, free to use, right? If you scan the QR code on that booklet, you'll get straight to it as well. Double check email addresses and hyperlinks. Read the email carefully. Be wary of program, obviously. But Gen AI, things are getting very, very, very challenging now. Do you have a phishing button on your email? IT, do you have a easy phishing button? Do you have that in what email software do you use today? IT. What email software do you use? Anybody? What email software do you use to send mail? Say what? Simla. 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 I can't hear. I won't be able to hear without the mic, unfortunately. But Simla. Spell it.
Microsoft Exchange, which is, and they use similar as well. Deletréame similar. ¿Cómo lo escriben ustedes? Deletrea similar.
R-I-O. Kerio.
K-I.
K-E-I.
And Simbrad, we also use Simbrad.
Sí.
Anyway, so now the software, the mail software you use, do you have a easy phishing reporting button on it?
No, como tal no tenemos mecanismos de...
We don't have a mechanism of this phishing. We don't have one direct. These kind of mechanisms are international apps, and we do not access to them. For instance,
You could develop one. So one of the things that we found is that if you make it easier for the employees to report phishing, you just put a button saying, like on the software, you install like a little button that says click here to report phishing. Right? Just has like a little button, and you train them to use it. You get more reports of phishing. That's human nature. They don't just forward the mail. They hit a button that sends the mail to you to inspect the mail, and then you say okay, yes or no. Yeah. So I'm just recommending you install. It's just a piece of code you write in the software to say report phishing, right there. It's not international. You don't have to do anything international. It's just
Sí, es
right
como reportarlo para spam, pero otro botón para...
It's like reporting for spam, but there is another key to report that as phishing for the user in the mail.
There's a button.
Sí, eso existe.
Yes?
Sí.
Okay, good.
Sí, como... que no teníamos...
I was telling you, we don't have an automized mechanism, but that do exists in the client.
Okay, good. All right, so that's good. So that's a good way to get it reported. So basically everything else is pretty straightforward. In the browser, just for those who are looking at, a lot of tabs open on your browser, look carefully at all the underlying tabs, underlying browser windows. So when you have your browser, especially if you're home, and you're opening up Windows, make sure you look carefully at all the other windows that are open. So let's assume you have, I don't know, do you use Chrome? What do you use? Chrome, Edge, Safari, whatever you're using. The browser that you have open, the window, sometimes you have to look under the browser. You minimize it, and you'll be surprised to see other windows open. There are other windows that have been opened that you do not expect. Look for those and close them, because they could be monitoring your movements, or they could be installing software. Do you understand what I said? So look carefully at your machine, even your phone as well. Look at the browser you're using, the web browser. Minimize it, and look to see if there are any other windows open that you don't expect to see open. Sometimes they open behind the scenes and they persist, and you don't see them until you minimize everything and look for them. And those can be very dangerous windows, right? Good. All right, so we'll go for lunch now, and after lunch we'll do supply chain, and then we'll do our tabletop exercise. All right, so break for lunch now. Lunch, yes, and come back here 2:30. 2:30, yes. 2:30. For the, yeah, those, yeah, 30, those 30, yeah. Thank you.
Mira, mira, mira.